Yeah. Great. That's fantastic.
So I,
That's basically the skinny edge of the wedge of privatization of healthcare,
yeah, I
right?
think that's where we're
Because
going.
when the government says no, don't worry about us interfering with how you spend this money or how you deliver healthcare services, that means you should probably just go ahead and privatize.
Yeah, or user fees, all these
Yeah.
different ideas.
Yeah.
They're gonna come up.
Yep, and this is the future of healthcare in Canada because we have a majority government, a Harper
Hmm.
majority government.
So
Um,
I saved the big ones just for last, though, Tony.
okay,
If you
yeah,
don't. Okay, so everyone's heard this all the time. We don't need to talk about it a whole lot more. But fighter jets, the Americans are gonna buy 2,400 of these fighter jets, and they say it's gonna cost them $380 billion. Canada wants 65. Now, if you price them out at the same rate as the Americans, it's going to cost about 10 million, and that's the number that Harper's using. However, the Government Accounting Office in Canada says it's probably going to cost $39 billion.
sweet.
That's insane.
That's pocket change.
Yeah. Okay, so the last two, going with that omnibus crime bill, time to build more prisons.
Yeah,
Hmm. So 1.6 billion was spent on in that area between 2005 and 2006. By 2011, the cost in that area had risen to $2.98 billion.
yeah,
And they figure that after the omnibus crime bill goes through and the building of these prisons, it'll be about $6 billion for the
sweet.
price tag.
Right. That's not even account. That's not even costing, including the cost of how much more of those extra pot smokers are going to cost to keep housed in there, right?
Exactly.
And the extra court cost to prosecute people with four pot plants, etc. All right. And so basically, what it boils down to is we have a pretty grim outlook for what the Harper agenda is in the 2012 and the years to come.
Hmm.
And again, because we're looking back, we do have to ask why we're here so that we don't wind up handing the next election to him as well.
Hmm.
We're here because progressives are not united. Okay, guess what? The Green Party is a progressive party. The Liberal Party is a progressive party. The NDP is a progressive party in relation to the Conservative Party. They're all progressive. We have to get them out of power. The parties have to cooperate. Okay, and people's first opportunity to express their desire to see these parties cooperate in order to unseat the Conservatives comes in this February or March when the NDP has its leadership convention. I hope everyone's buying NDP memberships, and I hope you look over everyone's platforms. There's one guy who has cooperation with the Liberals on the table. His name is Nathan Cullen. This is my pick for NDP leader. Even though I don't think he represents the strongest chance for the NDP to get elected. That would be Thomas Mulcair. But
Hmm.
I think that the NDP's electoral chances come second to unifying the voices of progressives across Canada in the most effective way to unseat Stephen Harper. That's why Nathan Cullen is my man, and failing that, Thomas Mulcair is just the best guy.
I think that my two top choices have come down to those two candidates as well.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Brian Topp has come out and he's trying to kind of use it as an inner party wedge issue where he's saying that Thomas Mulcair will bring the NDP to the center and that he wants to support a social democratic aspect of the NDP.
Here's another wedge issue for him. He's the only person in that in the leadership race that can now claim to have never been elected to something. So he can have the whole vote that people are going to vote for Brian Topp based on the fact that here's a fresh guy who's never even been a politician before, going to lead our national party, right? And then
Hmm.
the rest of the people can split the vote that people who believe that their leader of their party should have run an election before. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So Top commands the entire vote of NDP members who think that their leader should not be a like have ever won an election of anything. So that's Brian Top. He's working those wedge issues like a magician there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Fantastic
Well, that's
job,
kind
Brian
of
Top.
made me discount him. I mean, I had a hard time with his candidacy just because he hasn't been elected to
Yeah.
any political office. But when he starts to, uh, I don't know, other than to say that he's kind of trying to suggest that these other two NDP members are going to make the NDP seem something totally different than what the NDP ever has been. I don't see that happening either with Nathan Cullen or even Mulcair. So those are my
Yeah.
two top choices.
Well, here's the thing. Like, there's not going to be any politician that I'm going to fully agree with. I really think that Thomas Mulcair is a polished professional, highly elected, principled individual who has the ability. Who's a fighter. You know what I mean? All this the so-called whisper campaign about him having a temper and him being control-oriented and him being difficult to get along with. That sounds like a fighter to me. Go for it, man. You know what I mean? Be a leader, be a fighter, be passionate about your viewpoint, and try to hammer it. Try to hammer people into submission. That's fair. That's fair behavior because everyone can do that. You know what I mean? As a person who may or may not vote for him, I'm trying to use whatever strength I have in my position to shape his position, which I'm just one of millions of people that may or may not vote for him, and he's one guy, right? So obviously he's got the pulpit from which to swing his hammer. It's a bigger hammer. But the point of the matter is, this is good behavior. Being passionate about your viewpoint and trying to bend other people to it. If your constituents behave that way and your leaders behave that way, you might have something going on. My vote is going to get cast, however, for the person who is even just willing to talk about unifying progressive forces in this country to unseat Stephen Harper, Nathan Cullen. We have to do it.
I wrote Mulcair and I told him that while I'm very interested in his campaign, that I'm listening to Nathan Cullen, and I suggested that he look through Nathan Cullen's idea, which he presented for the Liberals and the NDP to do joint nominating sessions in areas that the Conservatives are already in power.
Absolutely.
So
it's a good idea. It's gonna. There's even Nathan Cullen says there's elements of it that are going to be tricky and have to be negotiated very carefully. But it's going to be a complicated, tricky situation though. So I mean, let's do it. We have to support this guy. We have to.
As tricky as it may be, too, it's probably easier than a complete merger, and I prefer it to a complete merger. It's a solution.
Me too. Absolutely, me too. Because guess what? When you have that government in place, when Stephen Harper his government is a distant memory, the nation has absorbed it into its collective consciousness. That his agenda is in fact simply about violence and redistributing wealth upwards in the socioeconomic scale and imposing a religious fundamental viewpoint on this country. Yeah, he's going to be history. He's got to be history, man, because this is not what this country is about. That's what these states is about. You know, he's handing another thing we hardly ever talk to is how he's like handing our sovereignty over to the Americans. We don't talk about that enough, but I mean that
is the last one that I had to talk about was the security perimeter agreement.
Accidental segue. Go for it.
Yeah. Well, the security perimeter agreement is really big news. For one, let me just read you this quick quote. The Security and Prosperity Partnership of North America, which was reached on March 25th. This is quoted from the website.
Yeah.
It says on March 5th, 2005, the leaders of the U.S., Canada, and Mexico announced the Security, Prosperity, and Partnership of North America. Well, guess what? Guess who the leaders are that are negotiating that?
Who?
There's no one in Parliament. It's not going through Canadian Parliament. Our Canadian representatives are here. I'll read them out to you. Manulife Financial, Power Corporation of Canada, Suncor Energy, CN, Bell Canada, Home Depot, Scotiabank, and a handful of other Canadian corporations.
So Home Depot is negotiating on behalf of Canada?
Apparently.
Well, that's not a Canadian company, by the way, but okay, cool. And neither is Manulife, I don't believe. I think that's American.
No. But those are the Canadian representatives.
Okay, so
CEOs
Canada is being represented by American corporate power in terms of negotiating our sovereignty away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's going to be bigger than NAFTA. It'll include not just trade, it's security as well, right?
Yeah.
The no-fly list from the Americans, that'll come in Canada.
I don't want to fly too far afield here in the speculative train of thought, but given the fact that on New Year's Eve, Obama signed the National Defense Authorization Act, okay, thereby allowing the army to operate on American ground. And we have negotiated a perimeter agreement with the states that allow their law enforcement to operate on our soil. Doesn't that mean, since then Obama just made his army into law enforcement, and we've just authorized law enforcement to operate on Canadian soil? I don't know. I would encourage. I think
Sounds like we're buying into that idea.
What's that?
It sounds like we're buying right into Obama's police state.
Yeah, it sounds like our sovereignty is in danger of being severely compromised in a way that, we have to be very careful of this. I mean, it's something we probably look at this in future shows and go more into detail about that.
Mm-hmm. And just the last thing I'd say about it too, that this is the scariest part, maybe other than the law aspects with American law enforcement coming into Canada possibly. But how do you like bulk water exports?
I'm not too stoked on them, but given the fact that I was just reading yesterday that 500 million trees died this year in Texas due to their drought, which is not going to get any better in the near future, I understand that I always understood ever since NAFTA was enacted that we were going to lose our water. It was a major thing when they negotiated NAFTA in the first place to protect the water, and we did protect the water under NAFTA, but there is certain loopholes that can easily be exploited in order to break down that protection of our water resources. The states needs our water. There's no question about it. They have to have it. They're going to have it. There's never been any question about their absolute and ardent desire to take it from us. We have elected a government that is not going to resist that. Chrétien strongly resisted that through his whole government. Okay? He strongly resisted it, and Stephen Harper doesn't appear to be so inclined.
Mm-hmm.
Bulk water exports. The short answer to your question is I don't like it.